Hello, hello, test one, two, three. Welcome to another stream. This is going to be a bit different one. We used to do it before, but we stopped doing it. But this is going to be a study slash focus stream. So feel free to ask your questions in the chat, but I'm going to be able to respond to them when it's not focus time. Let's see. Hello, hello everyone who's ever coming to the stream. How's it going?
Then we just say return, and here we say the success in case of this is false. The order ID is essentially the ID, and the error is that we have the status something other than payment required. So here we can say order is not in payment required state, and we can also make it like this. So we can use the variable itself. So here we can say order status dot payment required state. So let's save this now, and now we should have the remove API done. But I also want to type this a bit better for the GraphQL side of it. So in the resolver here, when we say remove unpaid, we should not have the order being sent because if you look at here, this returns a delete order response. So we should also say here that this is going to return us the delete order response just to type it nicely for GraphQL Playground and GraphQL Schema as well. And if you want, you can also say here that this function returns back this exact thing. But since TypeScript can infer it, I don't need to provide it by default. All right, I think that our remove order should be done. So let's try it out. I'm gonna go to Playground here and let's try to get a particular order. So let's say if I say get orders here, we have this particular thing which is in pending. So if I copy this order ID and if I go to remove order here, you can see I can.
Good, good. Not too bad. I'm just doing this experimental stream. I've been doing a lot of coding streams in the past, but I'm trying out this study stream and seeing how it goes. With where is my tab? With this thing here. I think it looks better when I do this. So we've paused it for a while. I saw some questions. I can maybe take those. How's it going for you, Matisse? Is that how you say it? Yeah, it was two x speed. I can't hear myself on the 1x speed. I don't know why. But I'm reviewing a three. I think it's probably 3 hours video that I need to review before we actually publish this on YouTube. So yes, I have to be fast, utilize the time as best as I can. Okay, looking at all the messages here. So we have Celos who says, "Hi, how's it going?" Amani says, "I'm Frank Amani. I would like to know if this is about what." This is just a study stream. I'm trying to experiment how these go, and taking questions as well. It would be interesting to look at a pattern that seems difficult over the years. Infinite paging with virtual scrolling, Angular, and signal stored using entities and resource API. Ooh, that's a lot of stuff. I'm gonna take a screenshot of it so I can get back to you later on this. But definitely a great suggestion. It could be a really good thing for a video. I'm going through all the comments by the way. Amani says I recently watched your Angular course and it really helped me. That's why I'm really excited to get the answer of my last question. What was your last question? Oh, you asked what this is about. This is just a study stream. Okay, Patrick. Okay, hi. How's it going? Welcome to the stream. Is this a raid or some of some kind? Uh, Good. How's it going? Good, good, good. Abdurrahman Khan, everything's fine. Sir, आप कैसे हैं? I'm good as well. Thank you, thank you. Going good. Just went to Modiseg stream and raided. Awesome, nice. Gotta find what fits. Aha, okay. You're building an insane aquarium clone. What is that? Can I Google insane aquarium? Oh, interesting. What is that? I'm gonna see. Aha, okay. So it's a game. You're trying to build it. What technology are you trying to use for this? Or what tech stack are you using for this? It was great. We have a fish. Okay, interesting. Muhammad Ibrahim, assalamu alaikum wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi. Okay, Patrick says, I'm gonna like and lurk. Okay, awesome. Awesome. Good, good, good. Yeah, you're right now at a stream where I'm trying to just review some of my videos so I can get them out quickly. Hopefully during the weekend because a lot of people get a lot of time during the weekend. So hopefully I can do that. But feel free to come by hopefully on Sunday as well, where we'll have some more vibe coding, some AI based coding as well. Uh, there's a there's a bunch of projects that I have that need some more love, so to say. So we're gonna see how that goes then. Well, let's continue. Alrighty.
there's payment required. If yes, then it's going to update it. Otherwise, it's not going to update it. So let's have a test around this. We're going to get some orders and we're going to try to update their statuses. So if I try to do get orders, you can see that this one has pending. So first we change this to payment required temporarily. So we go to update order status and we update this just like this. Now you can see that this became payment required, right? Now what we can do is once we come back from payment stripe, we essentially go to the success page with the order ID, right? So that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to go to my application, and even before trying anything out, I want to see if everything is working as expected. So the front end application is working. Yes, it is. So if I refresh the page, go to products, I can see something is breaking. Let's have a quick look. Something doesn't really work, and I wonder why. Okay, I just refreshed it with a control shift R and everything seems to be fine. So if I try to add 2 items here, and if I go here, proceed to checkout and go to Stripe, it essentially would land me back to the success page with a particular ID, right? Now let's try with an order ID that doesn't really exist just to test things out. So if I say here, hit enter, let's see what happens. So I'm going to go to inspect here now, and I'm going to go to source, and you can see that nothing is being displayed here, which kind of makes sense, but we also probably would see some error. So let's see if I put a debugger here, you can see that we have one debugger point here in the update order. I also want to go to the checkout success page. So checkout success component, and here I want to go to this particular place, right? Now if I hit play here, you're going to see that it comes to ng on in it, comes here, comes inside here, and you can see that the order ID is not there because we have order ID in capital. That's what's wrong. So I'm going to change this to order ID with a small d, and then change the parameter here as well. Hit enter, and now you can see that we don't really find the particular order, but that's fine. I'm going to refresh again, and now if I go here, we see the order ID. The order ID is there. Now it tries to get and update the order using this ID, right? So it tries to go here, and now we are essentially inside the RX method. We don't really want that. I'm going to put a breakpoint right here and then right here as well. I'm going to hit play. So it comes inside here with the order ID. It tries to get the order. If I hit play, it essentially fails at this particular order, which is fine. I'm going to use the right order ID. So I'm going to hit enter now. Now it comes here inside, goes here, goes here. If I hit play, it comes into switch map. If I hit play, it should get the order, right? So you can see we got the order now. Now in this particular order here, you can see that the status here is payment required. Okay? So it comes here, and then once we check that the order is payment required, we go ahead and then we go into updating the order. So it tries to go inside updating order, which is in the store now, again, which is an RX method. So I'm going to hit play now since I already had the breakpoint here. So we come here with the ID and with the status, which should be pending. Now it's updating this with the particular variable status pending and ID here as well. Now if I go to my playground and if I copy this particular ID and if I go to getting the order just to see what is the status right now, you can see that this is payment required, right? But from the front end, when this call should be successful, it should become pending. So if I hit play now, hopefully everything goes well. And if I go to my playground again and just hit play, you can see that this is pending. So our success function is actually working perfectly. Whenever someone tries to come to this particular page, they're going to make this API call, the GraphQL API call, with this payload update order status, and they're going to send the value, and then we're going to get back the data with pending, right? Now if I refresh this page, we should not make this call update order status at all. If I refresh now, it's going to come here, it's going to go forward, it's going to go here, and now when it comes to this particular part, the order status is already pending. So it should not actually make this call at all. So it goes particular tutorial, I've already created a pet market project, so I can essentially go there. And once you come here, you want to create add an app, and you need to select the web version of it. You might see this a bit differently, but essentially you need to create a web application within your project, and then you just need to follow the steps. Once you do so, you're going to see that in the authentication tab, you need to go to settings and enable the Google auth. So you go to settings, or essentially I think it's sign in method. So you come here, you need to make sure that you have the email password enabled and the Google one enabled as well. So both of these should be there. Once you have enabled that, you need to go to project overview and click this web part. Once you're here in the project settings, you need to scroll all the way down. You will see that you have the pet market web app right here, and then you'll also see down there that you have the configuration here. You will see the Firebase config object here, and you need to copy all the values from here, and you're going to paste them in the env variables. For this, what I want you to do is go to pet market assets repository, and then inside here you'll see that inside the source folder you will find an env file. Once you open this file, you'll see that we have all these variables that you can use. So you just can copy all of this. You need to go inside pet market web, and inside here you need to create a new file called env. So make sure you're inside here, and then you can click here, click this new file, and then say .env, and then quickly paste this file here as well. Now ensure that this file is also ignored. So here you see that this is not ignored in this particular context. So you need to go inside the git ignore at the top and just go all the way down here and say .env has to be ignored, and then you'll see that this would change to gray, which means that we're not going to commit here. Now I'm quickly going to go and I'm going to paste the values of these variables, and once you do so, you can also save the env file. Now that we have saved this, and you can see that the Angular 5 project has been also installed, we can go ahead with the environment variables stuff. So for the ngx env builder, what you would want to do is first make sure that you have stopped all the servers. Then you go to your project JSON in the pet market web, and then you try to find the instances of Angular devkit/build Angular. And here you can see that I have 3 usages of it. So I'm going to replace all of this with ngx env builder. So I'm just going to replace all of this. Save this now, and then we also need to provide the prefix for this environment builder, which means that you need to go to options, and inside the options, just after scripts here, you can say something like ngx env, and then you'll say prefix, and here you can say ngapp, which is also the default value, but this is fine. And if you want to change it, you can change it here. Now you can see that all of the variables that we have here are prefixed with ngapp, which is the default value. So make sure you have this as the same. Now what I want you to do is to go to the pet market assets, and in here you're going to see in the pet market web we have environments folder, and inside here we have environment.ts. So I want you to copy this whole file and then go back to your project, go to source app, and in here environments, and then replace this file. So you're going to see we just added this Firebase object, which is super important. So it needs to be exactly the same. Now what you'll do is you're also going to copy this for production as well. So go here, in here, and then you can paste it just like this. Now you're going to see that the type is not really happy because it can't understand what is info.meta.env. So we need to make sure that we help it understand it. You can see that the type is not really happy, and that is because we need to move this guy inside src or the source folder. So make sure you do that, and let's quickly save this file as well. Now when you go to environment.ts, you can see that this is and then replace this file. So you're going to see we just added this Firebase object, which is super important. So it needs to be exactly the same. Now what you'll do is you're also going to copy this for production as well. So go here, in here, and then you can paste it just like this. So you're going to see that the type is not really happy because it can't understand what is info.meta.env. So we need to make sure that we help it understand it. You can see that the type is not really happy, and that is because we need to move this guy inside src or the source folder. So make sure you do that, and let's quickly save this file as well. Now when you go to environment.ts, you can see that this is fine, and if I go to production.ts, you can also see that this is fine as well. Good. Now that we have this set up, we can essentially go and configure the Firebase. For this, we're going to go to app config.ts just like this, and in here we're going to go ahead and right after this Apollo.
I think there is some duplication here. Let's see.
On the source folder. So make sure you do that, and let's quickly save this. Make sure that we help it understand it. You can see that the type here is not really happy, and that is now you're going to see that the type here is not really happy because it can't understand what is info. Now what you'll do is you're also going to copy this for production as well. So go here, in here, and then you can paste it just like this. Now you're going to see that the type here is not
5704. Let's see. 5704. You're going to see TypeScript is not happy.
It's not really happy because it can't understand what is info.meta.env. So we need to make sure that we help it understand it. You can see that the type here is not really happy.
And then 5713. 5730. TypeScript is not happy. Okay, I think that makes sense, but I had something in mind. Yes. All right, break time. Okay, we can take a break. Any questions from anyone? We have Nassim watching. We had Arsalan as well. Let's take a quick break in the meantime. Going to be back. Give me 1 second. How's it going, everyone? Mhm, mhm. Okay, back to focus.
Happy, and that is because we need to move this guy inside src or the source folder. So make sure you do that. And let's quickly save this file as well. Now, when you go to environment TS, you can see that this is fine. And if I go to production TS, you can also see that this is fine as well. Good. Now that we have this set up, we can essentially go and configure the Firebase. For this, we're going to go to app config TS, just like this. And in here, we're going to go ahead and right after this Apollo, we're going to say provide Firebase app. And since we have never imported this, it's going to be the first time. So here I can say import from, and we can say add angular /fire/app, just like this. So here we should have provide Firebase app, just like this. And then this requires a factory function, which essentially should return initialize app method. So you notice that we also import this from angular app. And in here, we need to provide the environment.firebase, just like this. So this should contain
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. How's it going? Tasawwur. Taswoor. Hussein.
in all these values. But I'm also going to go and put a console log here to just print the value once and we can remove it afterwards then. So I'm just going to say environment.firebase, just put it here. And the second thing that we also need to provide is the authentication. So here I can say provide auth, and this is not imported as well. So I'm going to actually copy this, paste it here, change this to auth, and here we should have something that's called provide auth and then get auth as well. So in here, I'm going to say provide auth. This also takes a factory function, and here we just say get auth, and that's pretty much it. So I'm just going to save this now. Now when I run the application, you're going to see the Firebase console, but once you see it, you can just remove the console log from here. So I'm just going to run nx run many-t serve. Now when I refresh my application, you're going to see that here we show the API key and we also see all the variables right here. Good. And you can see the values right here as well. So you can see API key, auth domain, project ID, all of these here as well. Now you can remove the log from here. Now what we're going to do is to implement the login and sign up pages and the functions for essentially doing all of that. So before anything, we're going to create those components. So I'm going to go inside the folder. So here I'm going to do cd dot dot, and here I'm going to go to the workspace root, and now I can say cd apps pet market web, and inside here I can say source app, and now I can create the auth components here. So I can simply go here and say nx generate component, and here I can say auth slash login, because we're going to create the login component and slash login. So essentially it's going to create the login component inside the login folder. So I'm going to hit enter on the nx angular component, and here you can see we have auth login login, and now I can also do the same thing for sign up, and then we can say the same here. So auth sign up sign up, and finally I want to also create is a service. So I'm going to say nx generate service or nxgs, and here I'm just going to say auth slash auth. So it's going to create an auth service inside the auth folder, and this should be schematics angular service, not nest.js, because we're talking about angular here. So now we have the auth service here created as well. Good. So first of all, we're going to go ahead in the auth service, and here we're going to get the auth from Firebase. So here we can say auth equals inject, and here we can say auth, and you can see that this comes from angular slash fire slash auth. So this is important. Now the first thing that we're going to do is to implement login and sign up via email. So if you want to do that, you can essentially implement it yourself as well. It's really easy to implement, but I'm going to quickly do it here. So the email is going to be string, the password, not nest.js, because we're talking about angular here. So now we have the auth service here created as well. Good. So first of all, we're going to go ahead in the auth service, and here we're going to get the auth from Firebase. So here we can say auth equals inject, and here we can say auth, and you can see that this comes from angular slash fire slash auth. So this is important. Now the first thing that we're going to do is to implement login and sign up via email. So if you want to do that, you can essentially implement it yourself as well. It's really easy to implement, but I'm going to quickly do it here. So the email is going to be string, the password is going to be a string as well, and this function is going to be an async function because we'll have some awaits here. Then we can put this in the try cache. So here we can say try const result equals, and then here we can say await, and here we can say sign in with email and password, and this comes from angular fire auth. As you can see, this requires a couple of things. The first thing here is auth, then the email, and then the password. So this dot auth, and then we say email, and then we say password. And finally, when we have the result, we say result dot user, so we send it back. If something goes wrong and we have an error here, then we do console dot error, and we say login error just like this, and then we say the error here, and we also throw the error as well. So let's quickly save this, and now the sign up is going to be the exact same thing, but it's going to be create user with email and password. So it's the same thing. Now we're going to implement the Google sign in. So here you need to have this thing right here. So we essentially use the Google auth provider. We first create a provider, then we say we're going to sign up with this Google provider. So we provide the this dot auth and then this Google provider. Okay. When we do this, it's going to open the sign up or the sign in pop up from Google automatically. Then we'll get the result and we'll send it back. So it's quite similar to the email implementation for login. The difference being that we first get the Google auth provider and then we use the sign in with pop up, because the sign in with pop up can be used with LinkedIn provider, Google provider, GitHub provider, and whatnot. Then we're also going to implement the sign out feature here as well. And here we just need to use the sign out method that you can find here from Angular fire auth. Once you do so and you await it, you're sure that this actually worked and now you have signed out. In this particular situation, you may also want to take the user to the login page, or you may want to take them to the home page. I think it's up to you. For the sake of simplicity, once we log out, we're going to redirect to login page, but from the header where we implement the logout button. Now that we have implemented this, let's actually go and set up the routes here. So we have the login route, we have the sign up route, so we need to go to the app route TS or the app routes TS here, and we need to register these routes. So we're going to create the route for login here, and here you can see that we say path is going to be auth slash login. We're importing this since we are at the app folder. We say slash auth slash login and then login dot component. We get the module here and then we say login component. Similarly, we go here and say auth slash sign up, and then we say sign up, and here we say sign up dot component, and here we say sign up component, just like this. Now that we have this, I want you to go to the pet market assets, and in here you're going to see that we have this components and then header folder here. And if you look at here, we have the header auth HTML. So I want you to copy all of this. So I'm going to copy the whole file here, copy this, and then we're going to go to our components, header component, and here you'll see that we have 3 list items. So this is the home, this is the products, and then this one is the cart icon. I want you to put after this the whole code that we just copied. Here we have 2 list items when the user is not signed in, and when the user is signed in, we essentially show a drop down menu. Now let's quickly implement these things so we can go ahead and use that. So first let's go to header component TS, and in here we're going to get the auth service. So we can say auth equals inject, and here we import auth service. Now we're going to say current user, and you can say dollar, and here we can say this dot auth dot, and you can say current user. Now we did not really implement this current user in the service, so let's go there. So we can either create a property here that says current user, and here we get the user function, and we provide this dot auth. So here it should be user. I don't know why I removed it completely. So the user should come from Angular fire auth, and now we have the current user observable available for us. Now if I go back to the header component TS, you can see that this is fine, good. And we're also going to create is drop down. What was the name of the variable? It was called is drop down open. So we're going to create this, and we're going to call this false by default. Now we're going to create a couple of functions. We have toggle drop down, get user photo URL, and get display name or get user display name. So we're going to start with toggle drop down. The toggle drop down simply looks like this. We essentially take the variable, we negate the value of it, and then we assign it to the variable itself, which will basically toggle the drop down itself. Then we'll also implement the logout function, which is used right here. So if I go here, I'm just gonna paste this particular code, and if you look at it, it essentially just says this dot auth dot logout. So this goes into the auth service, and this is the auth service right now, which calls the sign out method from Angular fire. So our component goes to the service, and service goes to Angular fire. So that's what's happening here. When we click logout button, we also set the drop down to false, so it essentially closes when we click it, and that's pretty much it. Now let's also implement the get user display name function. Here we're going to get user or the variable of type user, and you need to import it from Angular.
Tassoor says, Asan bhai, please make a course on Nest.js with React, or is there any resource that we can learn with React with Nest.js? I have this video with Angular with Nest.js. I think the backend part is still would be the same. The front end would change. I do have a course on React itself, but not with Nest.js. So you can do combination of both if you want. You can learn React in Urdu from the course, and but that course is paid on Udemy. But you can also take this Nest.js course or the Angular plus Nest.js course for free, and you can apply the same concepts in React later on as well. So I think the problem is what you should be looking at for solving. I think the technology doesn't really matter. So you can pick Angular and then you can replicate the same thing in React. But I don't know of any such resource at the moment. Maybe I can create a course later on, or we'll see.
Fire auth, or we'll get null in this case. As a result, we should just send back a string. Now, if we have the user, then we use the display name, or we try to access the email, and we essentially split it with the @ sign. So I'm going to use this, and then anything that comes before the @ sign, we essentially use that. Or we just send back a string that says user. So it's always going to send back a value. Now for the user's photos, I want you to pause the video and copy this particular function. If the user already has a photo URL, and again, this is using the Firebase user here. If the user has a photo URL, we use that. Otherwise, we go to uiavatars.com that has an open API, and here we essentially get the user's name and we pass it. When we pass this, is going to use the initials. For example, for me, Mohammed Hassan is going to just use MA, and then it would just return that value. Now, if I go to the HTML, you can see that everything here is essentially happy. So I'm just going to save this now. Now, if I go to my page here, you can already see that when we refresh, I see this header, but that's just because we already had that as a login. If I click there and log out, you can see that it works flawlessly. Now you can see that when we're not really logged in, we see both of these buttons, login and sign up. If I click login, I essentially go to login works. If I go to sign up, I go to sign up works. So right now you should be in this particular state that you should see these buttons out of the box. Now that we have the header in place, let's quickly go to implement the login and sign up pages. So I'm going to go to auth, login, and login component HTML. I'm going to quickly copy the whole file and go to pet market, and here I'm going to paste this whole HTML. Now if you look at the HTML, it's pretty simple. We have a bunch of simple HTML elements, but we have a form here which has two inputs, one for email, one for password, and then we also have a submission form or login, or we just say continue with Google, which essentially should log in with Google. We have to implement this function by the way, and a link that redirects to the sign up page. So simple as that. Now we also go back again to pet market assets, and I go to login component TS, and I want you to copy this whole file because I don't really want to spend time on coding all of this. Now look at what this does. This essentially has two properties, email and password. For both the inputs that we just saw, it has an on submit function. When you submit with this on submit, it goes to auth.login with the email and the password. So it goes with the email and password login in this particular case. If it's successful, it goes towards the home page. Otherwise, it logs the error. Right now, when you go with Google, it uses this.auth.google sign in. So it goes to the auth service and uses the Google sign in method, and does exactly the same thing. Then moves to the home page. So I'm just going to copy all of this. I'm going to go to our project and go inside here and then just paste the whole file. Now again, I would recommend you to look into error handling, more of it, showing the toes when there's an invalid email or password. But I've kept the tutorial simple so you can handle the edge cases yourself. Now if I go to the HTML, everything looks fine, which means that if I go to my login page, this is what I see. So here you can see the email, the password, the login button here, and you provide all of these values. This button should be enabled, or you continue with Google. So if I click continue with Google here, you can see that automatically this opens this modal for me and then signs me in because I already provided it my consent before. So that's why it doesn't really ask me. But for you, it should ask the first time. But you can essentially log in easily with Google and see your image as well. So if I click login again, here you can see continue with Google is super easy. Now if I click sign up, it also takes me to the sign up page, and that is because the login component here also includes the router link, and we're using the router link right here just like this. So now that we have the login component here, the sign up component is essentially exactly the same, but with few differences, so to say. So I'm going to go to pet market assets, copy the sign up component HTML, go into our project, paste it just like this, and then I'm going to go to the sign up component TypeScript file, copy all of this, go to sign up component TypeScript, and paste it just like this. So everything has been copied, everything works as it should. And now if I go to the sign up page, you can see the exact same thing. So login and sign up, both of the pages seems fine. If I go to sign up, continue with Google, it also logs me in as I said before, and there you go. You can see it working fine. If you want to try out the user avatar thing, you can also look at this as well. If I go here and if I say the photo URL or this, I can essentially remove all of this and save. Now if I go here, you can see automatically it uses my credentials to give me this avatar as an image. Nice. I'm going to put this back so I can use my photo URL as well. Cool. Now the authentication works at least for us logging in and logging out, which is super easy as you can see. But now comes a bit more difficult part where we want to create the orders for the user so the user can get those orders later on as well. And that means that so far we have not really done anything with the user ID. For example, if I go to my table here, you're going to see that each order has a user ID column as well, but we never filled that at all. But since we were smart from the beginning, we essentially had that in the Prisma schema. So if I go to Prisma, if I go to the schema.prisma, you can see that the order always had this user ID with a comment that Firebase auth UID will be here. And the reason why we have this as an optional property is if there are guest users, we don't really need this user ID, but we still need to be able to work the whole thing as expected. So there should be guest orders, guest payments as well. But if the user exists, then we need to create those orders based on the user ID so we can get them later based on the user ID as well. So we need to change a couple of things here and there. But the first and foremost thing that we need to do is to know how to send this user ID to the backend when we're creating an order and then when we are getting back the orders as well. So that's really important on how to do that with Firebase. And since this is a really delicate matter of working with something that relates to the user, we can't really do that on the front end. We can't really create orders of the user on the front end because that means that we are allowing our API to get exposed by anyone that can just pass any ID and then we create orders based on that ID. So that's not really something that we want. What we want is we need to create the order of the user who is logged in, and that is where the authentication of the front end to back end communication comes in. So I've tried to put this whole flow in form of a diagram, which is the whole Firebase end-to-end authentication flow. Now if I summarize all of this for you, and you can skip the rest of my explanation, the idea is that the front end never sends the user ID to the backend when it tries to create an order on behalf of a user or when it tries to get orders of a particular user. Whatever is bound with a particular user, the front end should never send the user ID. And by that I mean if anyone gets access to the user ID, then they can essentially do anything with that because the backend API is exposed. Instead of that, the front end would always send a token. The token that it retrieves from Firebase is going to send the same token to our backend. Then the backend will go to the Firebase and will evaluate if the token is valid. And if yes, whose token is this? Is this Essence token or Mosen's token or SaaS token? Whatever. It's going to try to find the user based on the token and then will act on behalf of that user. That's the short explanation. If you go to our database, you're going to see that the order table has this user ID. We have not used it at all so far. The idea here is when you try to create an order, you essentially follow this whole process and the backend itself analyzes from the token what user is this and puts the user ID here. So no one can take actions on behalf of another user. That's the whole idea. Now if you try to look at this in depth, what happens is that first of all the user has to log in. So on the front end, the user tries to log in. The login essentially is done directly with Firebase. Firebase sends you back a JWT token. The JWT token is then set in the auth service itself. So this is still front end. So auth service has in memory the value of the token. This token can be saved in cookies, can be saved in local storage, doesn't really matter, but the auth service has access to it. Now let's say the user tries to perform a flow that requires authentication. That means getting the orders, for example. So if I am here and if I try to click a button here that says get users orders to go to the users orders list and see the list of orders, that means that we are going to essentially trigger a function, let's say get user orders, and this function is most likely going to be in the order store, which is the NGRX signal store. Now since the order store does not have any idea of authentication, it's going to request the token from auth service, the token that we got previously, right? So it's going to go into the auth service and will say give me the token. The auth service sends it back the token to order store, and now we have this token here on the order store level. The order store now can make the API call, the GraphQL API call, which says give me the orders of this user having this token. So the GraphQL query will require the token to be sent. This token will be sent to the order resolver in the backend, which is our controller, so to say. So the order resolver will then verify the token. It's going to take the token, it's going to go to the Firebase service that we're going to create in this video. The Firebase service gives directly the user ID back. It validates it, confirms it, and it's essentially confirming it from the Firebase itself, of course. So it verifies the token, it comes back and gives the user ID. Then the user ID is going to be sent to the order service, and then the order service will make a database query based on the user ID itself. Then we get back the order data from the database. We send from order service back to order resolver. The order resolver sends it back as a response to the front end in the order store. The order store automatically sets it to the component or renders it on the component. So that's the whole flow. Now it doesn't matter if you're creating an order, if you're trying to get a particular order, or if you're trying to get a list of orders, the flow is going to be the same. So I hope this explains the whole logic of why this is more secure and this makes more sense instead of having an exposed API where anyone can use the user ID. Now that we have talked about the token itself, let's actually start implementing it. So first of all, we're going to go to the web part here and we're going to go to the auth service to implement this token function. So if I go here just before the Google sign in, I can create a new function. I can call it async get token, and it's going to either return null or a string, which is a token. So here I can say let token, it's going to be string or null, and we're going to initialize this with null. Then we can say const user equals, and here we can say this dot auth dot current user, so we have access to the current user. Then we say if we have the user, then we say token equals await, and then we can say user dot get ID token. This is what basically gets the token from Firebase. If that's not the case, then we say else if we already have this dot ID token, which we are going to create right now, then we say token equals this dot ID token. So let's create the property here, which should be ID token, and we can assign this as an empty string, just like this. Now here we can put a quick console log here that says token from get token method, and here we can basically log it. We're going to say token here, and we're going to say return the token from this function. Good. Now that we have this function created, we need to send this token to the backend. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the Stripe service. So here we can go to services, and here we have Stripe service.ts, and here we have this checkout session, right? So here I can go ahead and say const token, and here we can essentially get the token. So we can say this dot, and now we need to also import the auth service. So here we can say auth equals inject, and in here we can quickly go ahead and say auth service. Now in here I could go ahead and say this.auth.get token, but since this is promised and we are using a function which works with observables, we can essentially pipe the functions. So instead of doing this, I can essentially go ahead and say from, and this is supposed to be coming from RxJS, so make sure you import it like this. Then I'm going to put this inside here, and then I can remove this, and then I'm going to cut all of this essentially. So I'm saying from, and then I say this.auth.get token, which essentially should give us back the token here, and then I say something like pipe, and then here I say switch map, and then from here I can essentially paste all of what I copied. So what I've said here is that I'm saying from this.auth.get token, then we essentially should receive the token here, switch map this. So go ahead and say from, and this is token, but since this is promised and we are using a function which works with observables, we can essentially pipe the functions. So instead of doing this, I can essentially go ahead and say from, and this is supposed to be coming from RxJS, so make sure you import it like this. Then I'm going to put this inside here, and then I can remove this, and then I'm going to cut all of this essentially. So I'm saying from, and then I say this.auth.get token, which essentially should give us back the token here, and then I say something like pipe, and then here I say switch map, and then from here I can essentially paste all of what I copied. So what I've said here is that I'm saying from this.auth.get token, then we essentially should receive the token here. So this should be token, and if you mouse over it, you're going to see that this is going to be either a string or null. That's what we want. Now when we have this token right here, we essentially can go ahead and make this HTTP post with the URL. Then we have this whole object as the body, and then we can provide the headers as well. So this is going to be the headers. You're going to say object, and then inside headers, and then authorization. If you have the token, then you say bearer space token, and then empty. If that's not the case, so if you don't have the token, it's going to be empty string. If you have the token, it's going to be bearer token. That's what we're saying right here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go to the checkout function, or if I go here, proceed to checkout, and here we are on the checkout page. So I'm going to go and say checkout.component.ts. I'm going to go here and just put a breakpoint here, so we don't really redirect to Stripe. Now if I hit pay with Stripe, let's see what really happens. So I'm going to do this. Then I'm going to call pay with Stripe. If I click this, you're going to see that we called the checkout API. If I go back to network, click here and go to headers, and if I scroll down, open the request headers, you can see automatically that we have this authorization that says bearer, and then this whole big thing that is exactly the token that we have from Firebase. If that was not the case, we would not have this value right here as well. So what I'm going to do is let's try this with logging out. So I'm going to quickly go ahead, play this, and then if I go back, it's going to remove the order for us. Good. Then if I say log out and try to do the same thing again, proceed to checkout, put the breakpoint in, pay with Stripe, you can see that we came here. If I go to network, if I go to checkout API, you're going to see that in this time, if I go to request headers, we have the authorization set to empty string. So we don't really have anything here. If you're logged in, it sends the token. If you're not logged in, it doesn't send the token. Easy peasy. Now that we have the front end at least sending this request, let's talk about the backend. The backend should be able to verify this request, and for that we essentially need a whole package that we need to install. So for this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop my server, and then I'm going to quickly go and say npm install, and here I'm going to say firebase-admin, and this is the package that we can use on the backend side to validate the token that's coming from the front end. And on this Firebase admin, you essentially have access to everything. So you need to set up the application, and then you can perform different actions as well. So now that we have the package installed, let's actually update the checkout service in the backend. If you remember the diagram, we talked about a couple of things. We talked about the order resolver, but then we also talked about this thing called Firebase service. We don't really have this set up at the moment. So what we want to do in our backend is set up this Firebase service only one single time, so we can use this across multiple modules or resolvers, and essentially have this connect with Firebase. So this is going to be the thing that connects with the actual Firebase. So what we want to do is in the pet market BE in the source app, and then if we go here, we're going to create a new folder, and we're going to call this Firebase. We could also do that via the Nest.js schematic as well. So let's try that actually. So cd.cd. Now I'm almost at the root. So cd. And I can essentially go inside the pet market BE. I run to see what options do I get. Here you can see it essentially says schematics angular module. That's not what I want.
Okay, so that was half of the videos. Let's see if I can open the second half. Where are you? Here you are. Yes, let's open this as well. Mm-mm-mm.
So what I can do is that we can generate this manually. So here I go and say app new folder Firebase, and inside here I'm going to say firebase.module.ts, and inside here we should have this essential code. We should have the module coming from Nest.js command. We should have the module decorator providing Firebase service, exporting Firebase service, and then just defining the class here. Now let's create the Firebase service ourselves. So here we can say firebase.service.ts. Inside here we're going to essentially create an injectable which is coming from Nest.js command.
Can also share already in the first part. First part, 5704. 04. I say you're going to see that TS. See that TypeScript isn't happy. A few seconds later, I repeat it at 5713. 12. You're going to see that TypeScript isn't happy. First part at. Okay, so that. See how much time do we have left? About 10 minutes. Okay, that's not too bad.
common. So make sure you have the same thing here as well. And we don't need this as well here. Now we can say export plus Firebase service. And here you can say implements on module init, which essentially means that when the module is initiated, this is going to run something or have some function that implies it. So here I'm going to say on module init, just like this. Now here, we only want to generate this service or initialize this once in the project. We don't want to do this multiple times. So in here, we now need to import the admin as well. So I'm going to say import asterisk as admin from Firebase admin, just like this. And I'm going to check how many apps the admin has at the moment. So I say if admin.apps.length. If we don't have that, that means there's no app initiated at the moment. And then we can initiate the app here. So I'm going to say admin.initialize app, just like this. And we're going to use something called credential. And here we need to provide the credentials file as well, which we're going to import from Firebase console. But what you want to do is here you say admin.credential dot, and here you need a certificate. And in here we need something called service account, which we don't have at the moment. So we're going to add that in just a bit. Now here it says Firebase service is not there in the module file. So I'm just going to bring this back again and it looks good. Now we're going to go back to our Firebase console and you need to go to the settings. So go to project settings. And here you are going to see that we have service accounts. And then you can go down here and you can essentially say generate new private key. This is important. Then it's going to give you this pop-up. And when you click generate key, it's going to download a file for you. For me, download it in the downloads folder, but I can right click here and click reveal in file explorer. And now I can go inside the pet market PE here and then I can paste the file. Now I'm going to change this to call service-account.json. And you can see the file right here. Now when you open this file, you're going to see all the values right here, which is what you should have. Now another thing that you'll notice is that this also gets added to the Git, but we don't really want that. So we also need to go to git ignore here and we also need to add this service-account.json just like this. Now what you want to do here is to add your service account file here. So you need to say something like import and here you can say service account from and here you need to give the path. So since we are in the Firebase folder here, you can see that I need to go 1 up, 2 up and then 3 up and then we have the service account JSON file here. So you need to say //// and here you can say service-account.json. Now you'll see that we are not going to be able to import this file because we want to add something called resolve JSON module to typescript config. So we can do that by going to tsconfig.app.json inside pet market BE and here you can add that in the compiler options. So resolve JSON module, set it to true, save this and now you will see that this would be happier. Now once you have this, you can essentially come here and change this cert to say something like this. You can say service account as service account coming from Firebase admin. Once you have this, you can just save this and now you have at least the application initiated. Now we're going to add a function to verify the token. So here I'm going to say verify token and here this receives a token as a string. Now we're going to try to verify the token that comes from the front end. So we can say const decoded token equals await and this is going to be async function. Now you can say admin dot auth dot and actually not dot here but here verify ID token and then you pass the token here. Then you can say return decoded token dot UUID or UID, which is the user ID that we want. If you have an error here, we can essentially catch it and we can say console dot error and here we can say token verification failed and then we provide the error right here. And in this case we just return undefined. So let's save this file now. Now that we have this, we're going to restart the application. So nx run many-t serve. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to checkout and I'm going to go to checkout module and here we need to import the Firebase module. So here Firebase module should be imported so we can use the Firebase service. Then we need to go inside the checkout service and here just like we have imported the order service, we're going to import the auth service as well. So here we can say private Firebase and here we can say Firebase service or you can also say Firebase service for more readability. Now when you're trying to create the order, we need to get the user ID. So here we can say let user ID and here we can say this is going to be string or undefined by default. Then we can say if we have a token and we don't have a token here at the moment, so we're going to say something like token is going to be string. So here we say if we have the token, then we verify it. So we say user ID equals await and here we say this dot Firebase service dot verify token. We pass the token here and then we essentially get back the user ID in this case. Then we also pass this user ID from the checkout service to the order service as well. So let's get the whole flow right. Right now we have worked on the checkout service. Where do we come here from? We come from the checkout controller. So this is where we should have the token. Here you can see that we're not using the create in the right manner and I agree we need to pass the token here as well. So for now I'm going to just say empty string. Now let's implement this correctly. We talked about the body right here, but we also talked about when we make the API call from the front end, we send the token as a header. If you remember in the Stripe service, when we send the information from the front end, we essentially add the token saying bearer and this is what we want to send to the backend. Now when we are at the backend in the checkout service or actually in the checkout controller, we need to get that header. So here I can say add header or essentially add headers from nest.js common. We're going to get the authorization header and you can keep this small. We're going to call this auth header and this is going to be of type string. Now we're going to check if we have that header at all. So we can say const token equals and here we can say auth header. If the auth header dot length, that means it is basically available or we can basically say auth header essentially. We're going to say auth header dot substring 7 and that basically means we are taking out the bearer. So you could either do that or you can also do lowercase and then remove the bearer from it. It's either up to you. So if we have the auth header, we essentially use the substring to extract out the actual token. Otherwise we use empty string. Then we pass this token here and that makes sense. And that's all we need at least from the controller perspective. Now when it comes to the service perspective, we also need to enable the order service create method to accept the user ID. So let's go there. In this particular situation, you can see that we have the create order input, which has a couple of things, which has the items, which has the total amount, and which has a token. But we don't really have user ID here. And in the order service, in the create method, we want to send the user ID and not the token. So I actually cannot use this create order input. We are going to have to create something else for this. So I'm going to go to the file where this is created, and this is in the orders DTO create order input. I'm actually going to create a new interface here called create order service DTO, and that has the items, which has the order item input, then it has the total amount and the user ID. And we're going to use this in the service. So we're going to go back to order service, and in here, instead of this, I'm going to say create order service DTO. This is important. I'm going to save this file as well. And in here, in the order service now, I am able to extract out the user ID. So I can say user ID just like this, and that means essentially when we're creating the order, I can say total amount items, but then also the user ID as well. So here we can pass the user ID. If the user ID exists, then it exists, and we add a new order, and then essentially, yeah, we can see that. Otherwise, we will have an order created still, but without a user ID. So let's try to do something. I'm going to go to my database here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and delete all the orders that we've done so far. So we can start fresh and see everything working. So I'm going to delete these records, and that means also that we would have no order items left as well. So quickly, let's delete this one as well, and now I can go to order item, and if I remove the filters, essentially you can see we have nothing here. Now let's try creating an order when we are not really logged in. So if I hit pay with Stripe now, you're going to see that if I go to Neon console here, go to order, you can see we have this order created. We don't have a user ID here, right? If I go to order items, I have the order items here. Good. Now if I hit play and go back, you're going to see that this order would be deleted because we have implemented the logic now. So if I go here, go to order item, no order items here, no orders here, nice. Now I'm going to try doing the same thing with logging in. So if I go and log in with Google, and now if I go and try to proceed to checkout, pay with Stripe, now you can see that we got the token and then we essentially went to Stripe. Now if I go to Neon here and try to reload the data, you can see that we still don't have the user ID. So something is wrong. Did we save all the files? I think we did. But I'm going to quickly put the console logs as well just to make sure that I see everything working. So I'm going to go to checkout controller here. You're going to say console log, you're going to say token, and then in the service, I'm also going to look into the user ID. So here I'm going to say token and user ID, so to say, and let's save this. Now let's try this once again. I'm going to click back here so the order gets deleted. Now I'm going to go again, pay with Stripe, and if I go back here, you can see that here we should have the token here. So we do have the token here, but apart from the token, I don't really see the user ID. So here, let's see. When it comes to checkout service, it comes here. So the controller here gets the token, and then it says checkout service.create and sends the token in here. Okay, so it goes here.
Fahad is asking a good question. How does it feel watching someone else write the code? I'm always like, भाई ना कर गलत कर रहा है. नहीं, अरे नहीं, revert. Are you talking about writing or AI writing code, or are you talking about a junior writing your code? Who are you talking about? Who are you talking about?
here, but then it doesn't really come here, which doesn't make sense. So it could be that the files are not refreshed at all, and I may need to restart my server. Let's try this again. Now if I click pay with Stripe and come back here, now I can see the data here. I think it was just some issue with the refreshing of the server, but you can see that here we have the token, and then here we have the token and the user ID. And now if I go to Neon, you can see that we have the user ID here. Hey, so we have the user ID when we create the order based on authentication, starting from the front end, sending the token to the backend, and the backend validating from Firebase and then adding the user ID by itself. This is amazing. Now, of course, if I go to Stripe, go back, this order should still be deleted. So if I refresh now, it gets deleted with the user ID. Only makes sense. Now that we have this implemented, I want to go and implement the orders page or the orders link as well. So let's quickly go.
Yes, I'm talking about AI. Exactly. I think that I mean it really depends when. First of all, which model are you writing with? I've had good success with Gemini to some extent, or Gemini 2.5, and also Claude 1.7. Is it 1.7? No, it's 3.7. So those are decent, I would say. But yes, in the end, if you exactly know what you're doing, then you're always like, nah, that's not what I wanted. But yes, I think still whenever it comes to vibe coding, even I can only see seniors getting benefit from it because they can review the code at the same pace, almost as at the same pace as the AI is writing the code. So yeah, I think they're not there. Path says mostly cursor with Claude 3.7. Exactly, yes. It's a bit. I find it a bit expensive, but I think when I use, I'm not really using cursor, but I'm using a Klein, the Klein VS Code extension with Claude, which allows me to also do the plan first, which takes lesser tokens compared to the Act mode. I'm not really sure if Cursor has that. Maybe it has already caught up with that, but I really like at least that feature from Klein. And then also the possibility of revert back or to restore a previous state as well. So hopefully on Sunday, inshallah, when I have some time, I'll be streaming to implement some feature in AudienceMeter.pro. So we'll see that being done live, inshallah. What says my bill is like $40 a month. That's yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think I've seen somewhere where it said also that it could there was like a $72 per month, but it's for replacing the cost of a whole developer that you would need if you're already a senior or something. So I mean I think it's not too bad, especially if you're getting paid like $25 per hour or $20 per hour even, then that's like 2 hours, and then you can still move fast as a senior developer. I don't think I mean I know that I still don't recommend it for junior developers unless you actually know what you're doing. So yeah, because there you need that human element for verification or to suggest or to say no, I reject that suggestion which you're giving me, or to give it a different hint, so to say, or to give it the right files to look at, which have existing correct implementation, so to say. But yeah, I understand you. It's hard. I think it has always been hard looking at someone else write the code, even juniors to some extent as well. And I myself had to train my brain to not jump into coding myself because I was like, no, 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 no. I can do I can do it better in like I don't know 10 minutes. What you have taken 4 hours. But yeah, that's not the idea, especially with juniors. But I think when it comes to AI, yes, I think it would have to be more precise, but I think it's getting better. It has become a lot better, and it's fascinating how you can generate code, nice code even now. It says, yeah, I mean, $100 a month is good as well, depending on how much you're being paid for sure. But yeah, interesting times, so to say. But what are you working with these days?
To the application here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go into the front end. So Pet Market Web here, and inside the app, I'm going to open into terminal, and here I'm going to create a component. So here I can say nxg component, and here I can say orders/orders. Essentially, you can see the folder, but not the orders component. So here I'm just going to say this, and it's going to be an Angular component. And now here you can see the orders component HTML. I'm also going to create another one, but without the s, so it's going to be order/order, and this one is supposed to be the detail page. So I'm going to add that as well. Now since we have two different folders here, and this is a component, the order detail component, I actually want to move this inside components, which is outside. So I'm going to do it, so you can see the order detail right here. Now some of the things may not work as expected, but we're going to fix that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this components folder from orders, and let's have a look at orders components. I'm going to remove this as well, order with items, and let's import this again. Good. So So this should be okay. If you look at the checkout success component, that doesn't really work because we have moved the component. So let's remove this. I'm gonna import this again, and this should be fine as well. Good. So you basically go and update the things that need to be updated, and that should make things good. All right, now that we have the orders page created, at least we can implement the HTML. So we're gonna go back to pet market assets repository, and in here you'll see that we have the orders page. So here you can go ahead and say orders component HTML, copy all of this, and then you go to our project, and in here you need to go to orders component HTML and paste it just like this. Now you'll notice that we have orders store.loading, orders store.error, all of these things. So we're going to implement that, of course. So we're going to go to the type file here, and we're going to add the orders store here. So we can say order store equals inject, and here we can say order store. Now we need a function in the order store. So here we have get order, which essentially gets one single order by above update order. So we can say get user orders, and then we can make this an Rx method as well, but I want to not make it an Rx method. I will make the Rx method in the component itself, so that gets destroyed when the component gets destroyed. So here I'm going to keep this a simple method. Here we're going to say return from, and from we're going to say the auth service. So here we need the auth service injected. Right now you can see we only have Apollo injected here, but we can also inject the auth service here. So we can say
I'm going to take the question in just a bit when we are in the break mode.
auth equals inject, and this is the front end auth service. Just bear this in mind. Now we can say from auth.get token, we're going to pipe it. We're going to use switch map here, and we're going to say here that we get the token. So this token is going to be either string or null. Now here we can say if we don't have the token, then what do we do? So if we don't have the token, then we can't really get the user's orders at all. So we're going to say throw new error, and here we can say user not authenticated at all. And this is on the front end. Now we can also say console.log here, and we can say token in order store for get user orders, and here we can log the token itself. This means that we have the token here. Now we can say here return apollo.query, and this is going to send us back the user orders. We have not implemented it yet, but let's say we say user orders, which is going to be order with items and an array of it essentially. Now we can provide the query itself. So the query is going to be something that we are going to create, and then the variables are going to be essentially the token. So here we say token itself. Okay, now let's create the query here. The query can be created right here. So just after delete and page order, here we can say const get user orders equals GQL, and in here I can say this. So look at the query here. We're saying get user orders. This is our name that we have given. It's going to have a token of type string. It's going to be there always, and then we call user orders. This is sort of the query that we need to create on the backend, but it will get us back the ID, total amount, status, items. Okay, and this is going to be multiple of them, of course. So now we can quickly go ahead here, and then we can say get user orders. So we're going to use this. Now once we have this done, we can essentially do a tap, and in here we're going to update the state here, of course. So we can say here we have the result, and here we're going to say patch state. We got the store here, and then we say orders are going to be result.data.user orders.
All right, we are almost out of the focus time. Let's see. Yes. So what did this guy say? Jawad says, "Sir, is it still worth to learn web development or mobile development for a new person?" Yes, it is. There are a lot of businesses out there still which would require you to implement web dev or mobile applications development or to update them or to maintain them for the long run. So it's still very much yeah, very much valid, so to say. So definitely. And if you're looking for web dev free sources, you can look into this free web development resource I'm going to share in the chat. That is, if you want to go for web. So I built this course called Web Dev Basics, which is um, in Urdu, so you can essentially learn from it quite easily. Fahad says, I'm able to fill in the gaps in my knowledge with AI, so I have gone full tech agnostic. I always was, but now even more. That's interesting, yes. I think for me as well, I don't think for example, if I had to pick a new project for some client, I probably wouldn't go tech agnostic myself completely. For example, I wouldn't pick, let's say, Vue.js or Svelte if I'm getting paid to write code for someone. I don't think I would do that. I would still rely on my own expertise with the framework as well. I think I haven't tried the other way around, but I probably wouldn't go. But for example, for things that I experiment with, for example, things that could include Python or things that could include something like a backend apart from the front end, but a backend that I don't really know about, or some library, or for example, Firebase functions to do specific things, I would probably rely on AI in that regard, where I don't know stuff. So I would still see, of course, whatever is being generated by AI, if I understand it completely or not, if there's something that I need to tweak. But I think I am still on the fence of when I'm actually doing some work that I have to be really confident about, then I rely on the tech stack that I'm very familiar with or I have expertise in. For example, for applications like uh, Focus Doro even. So I wouldn't pick a language that I don't know for any projects that I'm working with, unless I really need to. For example, one of the things that I worked on was uh, this RAG implementation of my Angular cookbook. So where we have a chatbot now that can respond to questions from my book. That required Python. I don't know Python, so I relied on AI for this. And then as I fixed issues that the AI was basically generating and research, and went to Stack Overflow, asked the AI again, then I learned during the process of what the code really does. But I wouldn't still call myself as a Python expert or someone who's an expert of implementing RAG solutions in Python, because I don't know. I don't have the expertise. The AI generated the code for me. I merely reviewed it. I understand it now. But if you ask me to Google really, I mean, just a few times and still implement something, I wouldn't be able to do, because Python is not the language I'm really fluent in, so to say. But yeah, I think the gaps can definitely be filled. I still think that the level of knowledge or expertise that we usually get would basically rely on how much code we write ourselves compared to what AI generates for us, and that's one of the risks that I see when I'm working with AI. That I'm almost certain that okay, this is something I've understood now, but I'm gonna forget it because I didn't write the code myself. But yeah, I think that's fine. It really depends on what your end goal is. And for my some of my projects, I'm completely okay with the notion that I don't know what the code does, because nobody is paying me for it, or nobody is holding me liable for what I've done. So yeah, it's not too bad. I'm really happy with the blog implementation that I did, and also that there was there was an issue with the email account, that Mailgun blocked my account for some weird reason. But then finally, they ask for some stuff. I send them some stuff, and then the email is done. I already shared my blog, or blog.code with sn.dev on social media, and I was like, nobody's signing up, and that is because the email isn't working. But I'm glad finally it works, so people can subscribe and become a member for free. Huh, okay. Sorry, I was looking at something. Okay, next focus round.
And we also should have loading, and we can say this is going to be Boolean. That also means that when we talk about this patch state, we are going to set it also before we start the Apollo query. So here we can say patch state store, and here we can say loading is going to be true. Finally, we are also going to handle error. So we can say catch error here, and we can import this from RxJS. In case of error, we set the error message to error, and here we should also have loading set to false. And we should rather say error.message here. Now that we have this done, instead of actually implementing in the component, let's actually implement this in the backend. So we're going to go to the backend folder here, and in the source app orders, and then we have the orders resolver here. We need a function to get the user's orders. So in here we're going to add a new query. So we are going to say add query, and this is going to be similar to what we have right here. So we're going to copy this. We're going to call this user orders, just like we have defined that in the store or the GQL. Then we're going to say async find user orders, and here then we're going to say the arguments is going to have the token. So we're going to call it token. We're going to give it the type as well. So the type is going to be a function that returns back a string. Essentially, we're calling this that it has to have a token, and then we call it token, and then we say this is going to be of type string. Now inside here, we're going to say console.log. We can say token in backend, which is important, and then we say token. So we're going to log this at least to see if the token comes to the backend. Then we can say const user ID equals await this dot auth, and we don't have auth here at the moment. So first of all, the orders module should have the Firebase module imported. That's the first. Then we can have the Firebase service here as well. So we can say private read only Firebase service, just like this. Now we can say instead of auth Firebase service dot verify token, and we send the token in. Then we say if we have the user ID, or to say if we don't have the user ID, then we can say throw.
Heather says too fast. Yeah, that's too fast because I'm reviewing it. I don't want to spend 1.5 hour to review 1.5 hour of video. I want to do it quickly. But this is sort of a study stream. So as you can see right here.
New unauthorized exception. We get it from Next.js common, and here we can say user, or we can say rather invalid or expired token, just to have a different error message.
I'm running, by the way, I'm running the video on 2x.
Then we say console.log. Essentially, we can copy this thing and we can say user ID in backend user orders, and then we console log this guy, and then we say return this dot order service dot find, and we don't want to use find all. We want to have another function for this. So we're going to go to the service itself, order service, and in here we have create, we have find all. We can essentially create a find by user something. So here we call it find user orders, but instead of find all here, I can essentially copy this and say find by or find user orders, something like this. And here we're going to still use find many, but here we're going to also use the where, and in here we need to pass the user ID, which is going to be a string, right? So you can also just say call it ID, call it user ID actually. So here it should be where user ID matches the user ID, but also we want only the orders to be shown which are not payment required. So here we can say not, and then here we can say payment required. So anything that's pending, delivered, or started delivery, that's going to be shown. Finally, we do have the include here, but I also want to order this as well. So order by, and here we can say created at, and here we can say descending. So the latest order should be at the top. Now that we have this function here, I'm going to save this. I'm going to go to order resolvers, and here I can use find user orders, and I can pass the user ID just like this. Awesome. So I'm going to save this now, and hopefully everything should work fine when we go to the orders component. So let's go to the pet market web source app and orders component HTML here. Okay. So now in the orders component TS file, we also need to import the router link. So the link at least works fine. So this is happy now. Now what I want to do is I want to get the user's order. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a function here. I'm going to call it get orders equals, and I'm going to create an RX method here. This is going to be void by default. And here I'm going to do a pipe with a switch map that says this dot order store dot get user orders, right? And then all I want to do here is to use ng on init, and in here I'm going to say this dot get orders. That's pretty much it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm also going to say implements on init and then save this. Now that we have this done, let's actually go in the routes to add this order page. So I'm going to go here and add another route. We're going to say the path is going to be orders load component. In here we're going to say import. We're going to say orders slash orders component and then dot 10. And here we can say c dot orders component. So now we have the orders route at least created. Now what you can do is you can go to the header component. So components header component HTML. And if you scroll up here, you should be able to have an li here. So let's quickly add an li. And in here I want to have this a tag. So I'm going to quickly copy this, put the a tag here, and then call this orders, and then we say orders. And we don't really want this class over underline, so let's make it simple. Now if I go to my application and if I try to click this drop down, I don't really see that. If I refresh now, do we have the drop down? No. And is that because I put it in the wrong place? I don't think so. Let's quickly save this. And if I scroll down, I should be able to find the logout button, which is right here. And this is shown when we have the drop down open. So I can essentially go here and add an li here as well. Now you can see that this doesn't look good at all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the style. So copy the style here, paste it like this, copy the role menu item, also paste it like this, and then also the click here as well. So I'm going to put the click here as well. And let's quickly save this. What does it say now? Click must be accompanied by either key up or for accessibility. Aha, okay. I think we may have to change this into a button essentially. So let's quickly do that. And we're not going to have logout here. So let's remove that, which means that I don't really need this as a button to be honest. So I could just say li and remove the click. Now you can see that this looks nice. So if I go here, click orders, let's see what happens. Nothing happens at the moment. But it actually goes to the orders page and it says bad request. Good. Now I wonder why this was a bad request. I'm going to restart the server just to ensure that everything works as it should. Alright, so if I refresh the application now, I see something different. It says user not authenticated, which means that I'm not authenticated here for some weird reason. So let's try to go to order store and see what's happening. So order store. If I go here, let's quickly go to get user orders. So I'm going to quickly come here and then check this as well. So if I refresh now, it comes here in the order stores.get, and then if I go there, it says token is not there as well. So it tries to get the token, but it doesn't really have that token at all. So then I'm going to go to auth service here and let's have a look at the get token method. So if I refresh now, hit play, come here, and you can see that at this particular moment we don't even have the user set up. So you don't see my login state here. Now it says user is null. It comes here and then it proceeds from there, says there's no token, and then it doesn't really work as expected. Ideally, what should happen in this particular case is that instead of getting the token from here, which essentially returns null at the moment, we should be looking at the user's authenticated object. And once we have authentication done, then we go ahead, get the token, and then do the rest of the stuff. So instead of relying on this, we essentially can do something like auth.current user, and we're going to pipe on top of this. Then we're going to go ahead and here we're going to say filter, and we're only going to work when we actually have the user. And this filter should come from RxJS, so imported nicely. And then you can say here that we should get the user, and we will only go ahead when we have the user available. So this is really important to put it like this. Now we're not going to keep a constant subscription here, so we need to take one out of it. So we can say take one, and this also needs to be imported from RxJS. So we need to import all of these things from RxJS just like this, as you see here. Now what this means is that we're going to first look at the user. We're going to wait until the user is available, and then we are going to take just one value out of it, which means we're going to take the user, and then we're going to use a switch map here. So we're going to say switch map here, and then we are going to say from, as we did before, and here we can say user.get ID token, and we're going to take the user from here. So user, and we're going to say user.get ID token just like this. And when we do this, then we should have the token available here now. Now in case we don't have the token, which should not be the case, we're just going to throw the error that says user not authenticated just like this. And we're going to move the patch state from here actually to the top. So as soon as the get user orders is triggered, we start with the loading state, then we wait for the user to be available, then we go ahead and get ID token. Once we have the token, then we proceed ahead. And one more thing that you could do here is that you can essentially put here the network or policy here, which is the fetch policy, and here you can say network only to always get the fetch data. Now if you don't really put it, it's going to use the cached version as far as I believe. So I'm going to put it just like this, and let's see if this works now. So I'm going to open my terminal here. And now if I refresh my application, you can see that we got the loader, and then now we are able to get the data. So this is exactly what we wanted. We're going to put some breakpoints. So here let's go to order store here, and I'm going to go and put the breakpoint in get user orders just like this. Then we're going to go here and put a breakpoint here in the get ID token. We'll quickly close this and let's quickly put a breakpoint here. Now I'm going to put a breakpoint here as well. I don't know why this keeps coming up. Let's put a breakpoint here as well. Alright, now let's refresh and see what happens. So first it comes here and it would set the loading to true. Then it waits and takes the first value that comes out of this whole process, which means that now we should have the user. So if I mouse over the user here or hit play, you can see that the user is available here, and we can call the get ID token from here to essentially get the value. So if I go ahead, you see the token is available here. If the token was not here, then we would see the error, but since it's here, we don't really need to worry about it. Then it goes ahead here and proceeds from here. And now that we have this, the whole process should be fine. Now it gets the result, which is having the orders, as you can see right here. If I hit play, we can see the orders here. Nice. Now we're going to go and implement the order detail page as well. So when you click this particular page, it should go to the order detail page, and for that we already created a component. So what I want you to do is to go to order component here, and if you open this, you're going to see that it has an empty HTML and a Typify key as well, but it doesn't have a route set up yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to app.routes.ts here, and I'm just going to copy this and paste it here, and this should be orders slash, and here we can say ID just like this, and then here we're going to say order component. Here it should be order, and this should be order component just like this. So let's quickly save this now. And now if I go to my browser, I can click back here, and here we're going to get the orders just like this. If I click this one, it goes to the order detail page with the ID. So the URL is actually correct, but we don't really show the order at the moment. So what I want you to do is to go to pet market assets repository now and go to the order folder inside pet market web source app, and inside here order, and now just copy this whole thing from here. Then we go back to our project and we go to the order.component.html and paste it just like this. So you're going to see that we have something missing. We don't have the order stored here, and we don't have the app order detail here. So we're going to go ahead into the order component here, and here we're going to first import order detail component. Then we're also going to add order store. So order store equals inject, and here we say order store just like this. And now we can save the HTML here as well. Now if I go to my page, you can see that this just renders something, but we don't really have any details here at all. So what's missing here? We don't really have the API call to get the order in this case. So what we should do here is that we should go ahead and here say implements on init just like this, and here we can say ng on init. Now I can go here and say this dot order store dot, and here I can essentially call the get order method, which is going to return us an observable. So what I can do here is that I can essentially create an RX method here as well, just for the sake of having the ID as the URL parameter here. So I can say here get order is going to be an RX method, and this is going to have a string as a URL here. Then what we're going to do here is that we're going to run pipe here, and then we can just run a quick switch map here just like this. Once we have this, we're going to return this dot order store dot get order, and we need to pass the ID or the order ID here. So we can say order ID, and here we can pass the order ID just like this, right? Now what we can do is we can provide this order ID, which we should be getting from the URL. So what we're going to do is we're going to import the activated route. So we can say route equals and inject, and here we can say activated route just like this. Then in the ng on init, we're going to extract out the URL parameter. So we can say const order ID equals, and here we can say this dot route dot snapshot dot params, and in here you can say ID just like this, or we could also say param map dot get, and here we can say ID to be consistent. And now we're going to double check if we don't really have an order ID, then we just set the error to say no order ID found. This should actually never be the case because it only comes to this route when we have the ID available. But just for the sake of safety, we are putting it here. Now that we have this, we can essentially pass the order ID from here, and we should be good to go, and we should have an order to render. So I'm going to save this now, and I'm also going to save the HTML file. Now if I go back to my browser and refresh, you're going to see that this probably would not work. And let's see why that's the case. If I go to the order.component.ts and go here on the ng on it, let's see what happens. So I'm going to refresh now, and it comes here, it extracts the order ID just like this. So we have the order ID, then it goes here, and then it tries to go to the get order. Now we're trying to do get order here. Instead, we should have just called this rx method. So I'm going to go back to my order component here, and instead of using this, we're just going to call the get order method, which is the rx method here. Now let's quickly refresh now, and let's see if this works. So as you can see already, when we refresh, we automatically can see the order ID right here, and then we can get the order here. Now this particular route does not have to be authenticated in the sense that if the user has a specific order ID, this could be a guest order. This could also be an order of a particular user. So we need to ensure that when we're trying to get a particular order, is it a guest order or is it a particular user's order? If it's a particular user's order, then we need to ensure that that is of the user who's trying to access this order. But even in that case, we don't really want to restrict this particular route. So I'm going to leave it just like this. If someone has the ID of the order, I think they should be able to just see it. So we're going to leave it just like this. Now finally, I'm also going to go back to the header component, and I just noticed that we have an issue here, and that is that we don't really have this link filling the whole complete li, which is a problem. So what I need to do here is I'm going to say class, and here I can say widthful and heightful as well. I'm going to save this. Now if I open this, you can see that still this is not a link. If I mouse over anchor tag by default is not blocked, so we're going to call it block here. And now if I go here and mouse over, you can see that the cursor changes as well, just like this. And if I click here now, we essentially go to the orders page. Now what we need to also do is to toggle the drop down if we click here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the parent of this button and this li, which is this div, and I'm going to add a click handler here. So let's say click, and in here I can say toggle drop down just like this. In this case, you can see that all of this becomes red because of this ESLint rule that says that we should have this click handler having a key up, key down, or key press as well, which means that this should be accessible in this particular scenario. But since we only want to propagate here that we want to toggle the drop down, we could also go ahead and here we can maybe put it just like this. But then we also have to treat this as a button as well. So let's quickly go ahead and say button as well. So let's save this now. And what I'm going to do here is that the logout should also toggle the drop down. But let's deal with the orders first. If I click the orders button, you can see that it hides the drop down, which is what we want. And I click logout, it also basically does the same thing. So it removes it by default. Because if I go to the logout method, I can see that the drop down is set to false here, which essentially makes things work. And now if we try to see, we can essentially see the orders here. What if I refresh now? If I refresh now, I should not be able to get the orders of this particular user because we are not really logged in. So you can see that we keep a constant loading right here in this particular situation, which is the drawback of the approach that we have used. But we are going to improve this with a different approach. But in here, it's just waiting for the user to be authenticated, and if not, it's just going to keep doing it over and over. But what about the order detail page? If I go there and refresh, you can see that immediately we can get the response from the backend. Super cool. And the fun part of this is that if I right click this and go to view page stores, you're going to see that in here also we're going to have the data as well. So order details is here, order ID is here. You can also see the items, the price as well. All of this can be seen right here because this is rendered from the server side. On the server, it looks at the URL itself and then renders the component accordingly, which is super nice. All right, now that we have looked into this, I want to address a couple of things. First, we can't really go to the orders page if we are not logged in, and we should be able to stop the user from going there. However, we can't really do that if the user is not logged in by default. If we don't really store that in local storage or somewhere else, that we can essentially use on the backend side as well as on the front end side as well. And the second thing also is that we can't really do this on the server side as well. So if I try to be logged in, for example, so let's try to log in by Google, and I'm going to go to my orders page, and now I'm going to try to do view page source. And if I go here and do a line wrap, you're going to see that this will not return us the list of orders here. For example, here you can see we have order number or status here. If I try to do status here, you're going to see that we can't really find any instances of status in the whole page. And that's because the server side doesn't have authentication at all. The only place where Firebase works is the front end or is the client side rendering of what is happening in the browser and not on the server side rendering. And that's a bit troublesome because here you can see the token in order store is essentially this one, but you can see that we don't really see the same log here. So we don't really see the token in order store for get user orders on the server log, which means that when we're running SSR, we don't really see the same log here. So this is only working on the client side and not on the server side. And in our application, we're trying to get everything from the server side. So even the orders should be rendered from the server side. Now, in order to implement that, as I mentioned, we're going to use something called cookies. So we're going to essentially install a package. And for that, you can quickly go and say npm install JS cookie. And then we're also going to install the types for this particular package. So here I can quickly say npm install dash dash save dash dev, and here types slash JS cookie. Now that this is done, we're going to implement the Firebase configuration or initialization on the server side rendering as well. And we're also going to use JavaScript cookies to essentially store the ID token in the cookies essentially. So first of all, let's implement the cookies part here. So I'm going to close all my files here, and I'm going to open auth.service.ts, and this should be in the pet market web as you can see here. And we're going to go ahead and at the top, we're going to import at least the package. So we're going to say import cookies from JS cookie. Then we're going to go down here and we can create a function here called handle cookies or handle cookie. So to say, since we're only setting one cookie here, and we're going to say if we have the token here or not. So we could have a token of type string here. If we get the token here, then we want to say cookies dot set, and here we're going to give the key. So it's going to be underscore underscore pet market or pm underscore session, and then we're going to provide the value of the token right here. You can call this pm session or pm token. It doesn't really matter, but you can use it just like this. If that's not the case, then we just say cookies dot remove, and then we use the same ID. So what I can do is I can essentially take this out from here, and I can say cookie key just to not use it hard coded all the time. And here I can say this dot cookie key. That sounds funny. This dot cookie key. Now if I go down here, you can see that when we do get token, we essentially create a local variable, and then we try to get the user's ID token.
Vishal is asking which video we are watching. We are watching a video that is not published yet. So I'm trying to review the video that has been edited by my editor. It's the third part of the Angular and Nest.js tutorial. So we have already two parts that are out there that you can find in the most recent videos. The third part is also done. I mean, it has been recorded. It has also been edited. There was one instance that's not correct that I have shared with the editor now that they need to fix in this video, and I'm trying to review the rest of it. So hopefully, once this one is done, then we have the complete tutorial of Angular and Nest.js based pet market e-commerce application, so to say, with the Stripe payments, with front end on Angular, back end on Nest.js, Prisma, using a Postgres database. Also deployment done as well on Cloudways. So the whole application essentially is done in that case. So that's what I am watching at least. But this is sort of a study stream, so it's not a tutorial, so to say.
From this function, or we use this ID token here. Now we have not.
Also, I'm using this thing called a Pomodoro technique, which allows you to focus for a certain time and then take breaks as well. So if you go to focusdoro.app, that's what I am using for this technique. And this application itself is something that I've created myself. So I hope that makes sense.
Set the value of this variable ever in our code so far. For example, if I do equals, you can see that this was never set. We only are retrieving the value here, but using the cookies, we are going to essentially set the value of this token as well. So now what we need to do is we're going to go and create a constructor function here, and we need to decide if you're on the front end or let's say on the client side or on the server side. So this is again front end Angular application, but on the client side versus server side, and we need setup for both situations. So what we're going to do here is that we're going to first have the platform ID. So we can say platform ID equals inject here, and then we can say platform ID just like this. Then we can say if is platform server, and here we can say this.platform ID just like this. Then we set up server auth. Otherwise, we say set up browser auth. Now let's first implement the browser authentication. So here we can say set up browser auth, and we're going to call this function right here. So this dot set up browser auth, and in this one, what we need to work with is a function that is given by Firebase automatically, which gives us the ID token. So here we can call on ID token changed, and you can see that as I type it, I can see that it comes from Angular file auth. So we need to call this function, and this requires two things. One, this requires the auth, and second, it requires a function to be called essentially when the value changes. So here I can say this dot auth to provide the auth instance, and then here we can provide an async function which is going to receive the user whenever the token changes. So just like this. Now I can try getting the token. So I can say const token equals await user dot, and here I can say ID token or get ID token just like this, and then I can say this dot handle cookie, and I can pass the token from here, of course. So I'm gonna just do like this. Okay. Now this function essentially should also be unsubscribed as well, and you can see that this returns the unsubscribe function. So we need to assign it somewhere. So we're going to go up and we are going to create a property here called unsubscribe from on ID token change, and this is going to be of a type of a function that essentially returns void, or this is going to be undefined by default. So we're going to take this variable and we're going to assign this value. So this dot and the value here, and we're assigning it to this whole function as you can see. And that means that we're also going to go here and say implements, and here we can say on destroy. So we can go ahead at the end and we're going to create ng on destroy just like this, and here we can say this dot unsubscribe from on ID token changed dot, or actually call it like this, and especially if the function exists. So that means that if the value of this is existing, then it's going to just unsubscribe from it. Now that we have handled the token, we also want to handle another thing here in the browser authentication, and that is if the authentication itself changes. So if the ID token doesn't change, but let's say the user logs in or logs out, then what really happens? So we do have a function that says before auth state change, and we can essentially subscribe to here as well in the same manner. So here I can say this dot auth as the first argument, and then we have the same thing here. So async a function that gets a user just like this, and now we need to check the cookie or essentially to set the cookie accordingly. Now when you see the signature of this function, you're going to see a couple of things. One, as the second argument, we provide the callback where we get the user when it's updated, and then also we have this on abort as well. If you look at on abort, this is triggered if another auth state change callback throws or has an error, and then we should be able to handle the side effects. So what we do here is that we maintain the cookie in a temporary variable. We try to get the cookie from this new authentication state change or this callback, but if there was an abort happening, then we revert back the value. So let's put it like this. We first create a variable called prior cookie value. This is, let's say, step 1. Then we go ahead here and we say prior cookie value. Essentially, we save the existing value that is about to be changed. So instead of using the ID token variable, which we have created right here, we are essentially going ahead and putting the prior cookie value right here. So here we first say cookies dot get, and then we say this dot cookie key. So we essentially get the value of the cookies, and we save it here for temporary reasons. So here you can say this is going to be step 2. Then we say const token, and then we try to do await, and then we do the exact same thing here. So we essentially get the user's ID token, and then we do exactly the same thing. So we go ahead and say this dot handle cookie, passing the token in. Now let's say there's an abort that happened. So on abort was basically called, which means that this is going to be an async function just like the other one. I'm going to use this as another function. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say this dot handle cookie, and then I'm going to pass the prior cookie value. So what I'm trying to say here is that once we have a change in the auth state, before we assign the new value to the cookie, we get the existing value of the cookie and save it in the temporary variable. So forget what I said about the ID token. That's a different thing. We're talking about the cookie here. So when we have the new cookie about to be set, we essentially save the previous one temporarily. So step 2, save temporarily. Then we essentially save the new value. So you can call this step 3. So this sets the new value of the cookie in the cookies essentially. But let's say there was an abort happening. In that case, we revert back to the existing cookie or the previous cookie that we had saved. So this is really important. And this is essentially step 4 that you can say rollback. Finally, once we are done with all of this, once we have done all of this in the setup, so we have set a handler for this guy and this guy, then we go ahead and essentially
Oh, that I said 2 times. Finally. Let's see.
rollback. Finally, once we are done with all of this, once we have done
See? So here I can mention
and say rollback. Finally, once
3953. Part 2 at 3953. I say finally once we're done.
once we are done with all of this, once we have done all of this in the setup, so we have set a handler for this guy and this guy, then we go ahead and essentially get the value from the cookie and set it to ID token. So here I say this dot ID token equals, and then I say cookies dot get, and here I say this dot cookie key. So we essentially get the cookie's existing value and assign it to ID token. Now we're either going to get that value or not, so I'm going to say or assign an empty string right here. Now as we did the unsubscription here for this particular handler on ID token change, we also need to do the same thing for this auth state change as well. For this one, we're going to go above here and we're going to create a variable here, unsubscribe from before auth state change, and this is going to have the same signature as this one. I'm going to copy this, go here and assign the value here. So this dot this variable equals, and now I'm going to go to the ng on destroy, and here I'm going to say this dot, and then calling the function just like this. Now we have the whole setup done actually. Now what does this mean? Now I'm going to restart my server. So quickly let's try to start a server, and it seems like my server crashed. So let's quickly do nx run many -t serve. Now if I try to go to my browser and just refresh here, let's see what happens. You're gonna see that if I hit play here, just remove the breakpoints, and now I'm logged in. If I go to my applications tab here in the debugger, and if I go to cookies, you're gonna see that localhost 4200 has a cookie already set now that says PM session, and this has the token that we get from Firebase. Super cool. What I'm gonna do is I'm going to clear everything. So let's go to storage and clear site data. Now if I refresh now, you're gonna see that we don't have the user logged in anymore. That's the first thing. And then you can see that we keep loading and loading and loading. Now let's debug the whole process. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to auth service, and we're going to put some breakpoints here. So I'm gonna click here, click inside here as well whenever the ID token changes, and then when we have the auth state change as well, and the abort here as well. And I'm gonna put a breakpoint here as well. Now when we refresh, let's see what happens. In this case, it goes to set a browser auth because this is not platform server. So it goes inside here, and then it registers this function, and it should also register this function as well. So comes here as well, and then comes to this particular line. It will try to get the cookies, but will not find anything. So this should be empty string by default, as you can see. Now if I hit play, this is going to look at the user's state. So here you can see that whenever the ID token changes, it comes here with the user. Now this one is null, so this is not gonna have any token, and you can see that this will not save anything at all. Now you can see that we have a constant loader going on, and nothing has changed now. Now if I try to go to login and do continue with Google, and when the login is successful, you can see that it comes here, and now it tries to look at the cookie. So there will not be any prior cookie value because we were not logged in. Then it goes here, gets the token, as you can see right here, and then goes into the handle cookie, then gets the token, and now it is about to set the cookie. If I go to application right now and see the cookies here, you can see a bunch of cookies here, but not the PM session. Now if I hit and play this, you're gonna see that in the application we have the PM session cookie here, which shows the value of this token. Awesome. And now it also triggered the ID token change because obviously we have signed in now, so the token is gonna change. And now if I come here, it essentially sets the cookies. This is amazing. Now when I refresh the application, let's see what happens. So it comes into the setup browser auth.